Moscow Pullman, KNWV 90.5.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday, December 18th Moscow City Council meeting. Gina?
Happy holidays, everyone. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gina. And I got a quick announcement here on our schedule. We do not have an executive session this evening for anybody that would be interested in knowing that. And with that, I would move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second it.
I think we had somebody that wanted to pull an
I was
item.
going to
That's okay. You can go ahead. Brandy, you have the floor.
request if we could pull the, which item is it?
Item F.
Item F about the Children Pedestrian Safety Program grant, just for some brief discussion.
Okay. Okay, let me know that Brandy would like to have item F from the consent agenda pulled, Children Pedestrian Safety Program 2018 application. Go ahead, Brandy.
The question I have, perhaps for Les, I'm not sure, or to clarify, it says the project scope will be finalized and the cost will be established not to exceed $250,000. And my understanding from being at the Public Works meeting is that that is the limit of the grant. However, it may be determined that the project cost could be beyond that, even though we only can apply for a $250,000 grant. Is that correct?
And Your Honor, just before you answer, I didn't want to interrupt, maybe a motion to amend the agenda if you're going to address something.
Oh.
Do a motion and go in if you're going to pull that off.
Okay. Jim, would you like to amend your motion to pull item F?
Okay, I'll amend the motion that we approve everything except item F on the consent agenda.
Well, I'll second that again.
Okay, so we'll start the roll with Walter.
Aye.
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 Okay, now we will pull item F,
Okay.
and you can continue.
Thank you.
So the short answer is yes, that's correct. The limit on the grant application is $250,000. Depending ultimately on which types of corridor improvements are selected, it could be less than that, it could be more than that in terms of the actual overall project cost.
Thank you. All right, so I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Item number F.
Item F.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Okay, Brandy made a motion to approve consent item number F, Children Pedestrian Safety Program 2018 application with Jim's second. We'll start the roll with Walter.
Aye.
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 Okay. We will move on to item number 2, staff recognition report. Jen, do we have anything this evening?
We don't have any recognition reports for this evening.
Okay. Item number 3 is mayor appointments, and I have got a list that I'm going to read off of a bunch of folks. This all start with fair and affordable housing. Casey Holcomb, term expires 12/31/2020. That's fair and affordable housing. Randy Belcole, fair and affordable housing commission, expiration at 12/31/2020. 2 on farmers market commission, Colette D. Phelps, expiration 12/31/2020. David Pierce, also 12/31/2020. Historic Preservation Commission, Aaron Stoddart, expiration 12/31/2020. Wendy McClure, also expiration at 12/31/2020. Human Rights Commission, a number of them. Mary Carter, who is our high school non-voting seat, to expire 12/31/2018. Ken Fonts, expire 12/31/2020. Rebecca Talent, to expire 12/31/2020. Sandra Kelly, to expire at 12/31/2020. Sophia Eck, who would the commission would be at 12/31/2018. She would hold a college seat for human rights. And then we'll move on to the Moscow Arts Commission. Christine Gilmore, for the Arts Commission, expiration at 12/31/2021. 3 different individuals on the Pathways Commission: Jonathan Graydon, who would expire on 12/31/2020, Judy Brown, who would expire on 12/31/2020, and Tanya Dennison, also 12/31/2020. 3 individuals on Parks and Rec Commission: Justin Minden, who would expire on 12/31/2020, Robert Cooper, who would expire on 12/31/2020, Susan Steele, with the expiration of 12/31/2020 as well. Planning and Zoning, 2 individuals: D. Nels Reese, expiration 12/31/2022, Joel Hamilton, expiration of 12/31/2022. 1 person on Environmental Commission, Sustainable Environment Commission, Scott Fidel, who would expire on 12/31/2020. Transportation Commission, Brian Johnson, whose commission would expire 12/31/2022. For Moscow Urban Renewal Council Liaison, Art Bedke would expire on 12/31/2018, and that would fill the second year of the 2-year term that John Weber had. Also on Moscow Urban Renewal Agency, Steve McGeehan, expiration at 12/31/2022. Farmers Market Commission, Adam Reed, which would expire on 12/31/2020. And the Tree Commission, David Ralco, would expire on 12/31/2020. And I would entertain from the council.
Mr. Mayor, you left out Jim Boland.
No, that's coming down. That is not left
It's
down.
later?
This will be something in the future. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the reappointments and the 1 appointment for the Moscow City Commissions.
Okay. Okay, I got a motion by Catherine and a second by Gina to approve all those that are read off that I have read. I'll start to roll with Brandy.
Aye.
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 Okay. I know there's some folks here that are on those commissions. Would you like to get a chance to get up and say hi and speak? And Wendy, I'm not picking on you. I know you're here for another reason, but it's always a big deal for me as the mayor of Moscow to thank people that serve on these commissions, because they take a lot of their time out to do this for our community, to make things better for us. And all of these commissions are very, very important to us. And so with that, I just want to thank those that are willing to serve. With that, I will move on to item number 4, which is public comment and the mayor's response period. We allow 15 minutes for those folks to get up and chat and tell us what's on their mind. And if you do, please give us your name and your address, and as long as it is not on tonight's agenda and or in front of P&Z and or the Board of Adjustments.
Victoria Seaver, 121 North Lily, Moscow. I thought I'd interject a little humor in with my comments tonight. The city has a FOG program, which is fat, oils, and grease. And that's to keep the fats, oils, and grease out of the drainage system so it doesn't go clog up the sewers. And I ran into Tyler Palmer today, who told me that the local businesses that the city's been working with have all been very much on board and very much into getting this done from their end. So kudos to our local businesses and kudos to our staff. And that all came up because of this little article that was in the paper last week, which I'm going to read to you. I know Walter is aware of it because not much gets by him.
How do you know I know about it?
Because Tyler told me. So this is out of London. Part of a monster fatberg that clogged one of London's sewers is destined for fame in a museum. The Museum of London says it will put the only remaining chunk of the 143 U.S. ton mass of oil, fat, diapers, and baby wipes on display early next year. Workers for utility company Thames Water spent weeks this year dislodging the smelly 820-foot-long blob by breaking it up with high-powered hoses. The museum's shoebox-sized chunk is all that remains. The rest of it has been converted to biofuel. So there shall be no fatberg in Moscow because we have fog.
Thank you, Victoria. Okay, others who would like to speak, please come out. State your name and your address and let us know what's on your mind.
I'm Steve Flint, 4961 Lenville, so I'm in county, not in the city. I just have a brief comment about US 95. On March 6, ITD presented an update to you, and they said something to the effect that they were ready to build on the E2 route for US 95. They were hiring an appraiser and so on. Well, they left out one important item. They had not received a clean water permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. In fact, at the time they spoke to you, they had not even applied for this permit. Now, despite the name of the permit, it actually permits the entity to destroy wetlands. So without it, they cannot build E2. Now, all three of the alternatives that were in the EIS were considered practicable because they were designed to the same standards. Because E2 destroys over 3 times the acreage of wetlands as C3, the regulations that the Army Corps of Engineers must adhere to will only let them issue a permit for C3, the central route that has essentially no opposition. Rather than including the wetland evaluation in the EIS as is traditionally done, they postponed it. They filed their application for this permit late this spring. The Army Corps asked for more information in September, and the Corps is still waiting for this information from ITD. So ITD should have known that E2 did not conform to the Clean Water Act requirements long ago. So essentially, I believe they've been wasting everyone's time and money by pursuing E2 rather than getting C3 built. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Others that would like to come up and speak? Okay, with that, we will move on to item number 5, which is Citizens Commission Report, Historic Preservation Commission. Michael Ray and Wendy McClure are here to present this evening. Good evening, Mike.
Evening, Your Honor, council members. I'm here tonight to introduce Wendy McClure. Wendy's the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, also chair of Planning and Zoning Commission, and Wendy dedicates an incredible amount of time to these 2 commissions as well as the city, and it's been a pleasure working with her over the years. And we wouldn't be able to do without, what we do without Wendy's leadership. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to her.
Good evening, Wendy.
Good evening, Mayor Lambert and Council, and thank you, Michael. And I have to echo that about Michael. He makes our job much easier as staff liaison, and also I appreciate Walter Steed's service this year as commission liaison, and Ann Peterson, too. She keeps us on track, so we really appreciate that support. So this is our annual report. We've been busy as a commission again this year, and hopefully I'll get this right as we go forward. We are still in the process of trying to recruit members for a few vacancies. We've had folks attend several meetings, and we're hoping that they'll go ahead and apply. So you may hear from them, but at any rate, we have a core group and a student member, Shirin Masudi. And we meet on the 4th Thursday of every month, except when things like Christmas and Thanksgiving change those dates. So that's the case this year. We have several ongoing projects that we do annually. One of the biggest ones is our newsletter, and it takes about 9 meetings of just the commission, plus working with consultants to figure out agree on what we're going to focus on for the year, and also the content. Barb Coiner has worked with us for the last several years. She's full of energy if you've ever met her. She produces, in our opinion, a dynamite newsletter, and she works with Pam Overholzer, who was on the commission for many years but moved to California this year. But she still has been helping her with the graphics. And this year we decided to focus on food and on downtown Main Street, restaurants both past and present, and the role that food has played
in our downtown over the course of its history, really. So hopefully you'll have a chance to look through this more carefully. Ken Carper donated one of his photos to help be incorporated into the cover. So we thank him for that as well. Another ongoing annual task is to try to recognize signature preservation projects throughout the community. This year, it just so happened that in terms of, that had been accomplished in the last year, this year, we did award one residential project, and I can't read. Oh, I can read it here. Jessica Lucas on 7th Street and her new garage and connection that we felt was really in keeping with her craftsman home on 7th Street. And then 3 restaurants that you can see that represent adaptive use of spaces. One being Hunga Dunga, and its owner Graham Lilly, and they repurposed Stuckey Seed buildings. I guess I have a family interest here. My husband, William Thompson, and the owners of Tapt, who took Bill's building and the main floor. You can probably remember the succession of uses in that space, from Army-Navy store to Wild Women Traders that went down in the recession to, let's see, it had a sort of trying to make it thrift store, and now Tapt, which has been very successful, and that's really credit to the owners of Tapt, who are young and energetic. And also colleagues of mine, Patty and Matt Brim. Matt's a member of the architecture faculty, took the old, the new Hong Kong. I always get it mixed up with the old Peking. Anyway, the new Hong Kong, and they really, we applaud them for preserving the wonderful interior, but making it work better, and bringing a new restaurant into that space. So this Orchid Awards event is not only do we give awards, but we also try to make it a event night. This year we had a panel of all these various participants talking about their experience in remodeling buildings and the challenges they ran into. And you'll have to look forward to next year's event and come to that. So our biggest ongoing project that now is almost concluded, I think. It's not quite up on the internet yet, I looked tonight, but we've been working on expanding the Fort Russell District, which was founded in 1980, the first version, and we've gone through multiple steps to get there, worked with consultants initially for the first 3 phases, 80 preservation from Spokane, and they had to start by, and we've sort of cobbled together grants to keep the process in motion, working with, phase 1 was surveying the existing district and figuring out, and then looking at a bigger, we wanted to clarify the boundaries a bit, and so we went all the way out to, in this initial survey, out to 6th Street and to Hayes Street and a little bit and D Street, and then the south is the west boundary is a little bit less clear. And they surveyed those properties in the first phase. You can see the blue area delineates that, quite a large number of properties. And then we started to make sense of the data and see where it made sense to draw the boundaries for the new district, the revised district, that had, and also what the period of significance is. And in this case, it's really from the late 1870s to 1940, and then you see a change of development pattern, really where you start to see ranch houses and more post-war World War II housing, et cetera. So the district was really defined by some of those criteria. This is part of the original sort of survey, just to see what was in the existing district, and we ended up settling on the boundaries that you see in green, and we wanted them to be clean, straight, good old geographic lines, but topography gets in the way, and the other, as you fall off the cliff on the west. The other thing that happens is you have to have a certain percentage of contributing buildings, and so the zigzags really jog around areas where there was a cluster of too many buildings that would not be considered contributing to the historic significance of the district. So those are the boundaries, but basically you can say it's 3rd Street, Hayes Street, D Street, and and that little armature north of D Street is really because that house was included in the 1st district, so we didn't want to cut them out, so they're part of it still. Anyway, that was an accommodation. And here are the range, and also the way we were able to build in more houses than and properties than would initially have been envisioned is that we pushed for the state to look at offer more tolerance in modifications of a district that's grown over time. Like people need to add on to their house. How do they do that? Well, sometimes they need to put dormers up in the attic to capture that space. And some consultants in preservation don't like that, but we convinced them that this was important. Looking at additions as a way to grow as well, and sometimes contemporary materials to replace those that are high maintenance. So after with those applying those criteria and the revised district boundary, we've picked up quite a few new properties. And let's see, we submitted the National Register forms to the Idaho State Historic Sites Review Board in 2016. They weren't quite, we thought we were all sealed and done because we'd been working with them, and they they threw us a caveat, which was new rules from the National Park Service that we got caught in the middle of, which required also a documentation of all the accessory structures in the proposed district. So we rather than go get a grant, hire the consultants back, we did it ourselves, and we went and inventoried those structures. And if you remember last winter, every alley where accessory structures reside had ice in it and icicles, and it was, it took a while. We didn't have the best weather, but we got it done. And as far as I know, Mike, we're amended and on the National Register as of September 25th. It's not officially on the state of Idaho's website yet, but it's hopefully going to show up soon. I checked tonight, and it wasn't there. So the total number of properties went up quite a bit, and we're up to 73% contributing within the amended district, and quite a few more houses to call our to take pride in being part of Fort Russell. And this is all honorary. I mean, people can tear down their house tomorrow. That's a common misperception about the National Register, that it's not really a protection measure, it's an acknowledgement and a recognition. So if anybody tells you otherwise, they're wrong. unless there are federal funds involved, and then there has to be a survey. But anyway, that's I guess that's the final district right there. Okay, so quite a few more properties. And our new project, that's not an ongoing project, that's becoming a new ongoing project, is interpretive signage. And this has been in the Preservation Commission's goals since long before I joined them. I decided I was going to try to push it through this year or in the next few years. And so we're starting with really these 3 signature buildings in our institutional buildings, 4, excuse me. The first one that we're focusing on, 2, are this building and the 1912 Center, because the city owns them, and they seem like a great place to start. They're both on the National Register. So we've been working with consultants to design both the sign stand and also some of the graphic layout. And then Mike has been incredible with his skills from here to help us tweak the what we got from the consultants because they weren't quite there yet. So we're hoping to get the 1912 Center stand installed to make Jenny happy for some opening event she has next summer, and the Moscow City Hall in the coming year. So. And I think, and so we're also always looking for other places that might have the material to become an historic district. We'd like to initiate a dialogue with Ray Penkoff and others from the University of Idaho about the core of campus also being an historic district. So that's about it. We've done a lot of stuff this year. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, thank you for that good presentation. Wendy? Catherine?
I was curious where, when you figure out the placement for the 1912 information center, where, have you picked a location?
We have, yeah. I mean, well, Jenny and I spent an afternoon looking at options, and where her preferred place, which I think will work pretty well, and it actually will cost us less money because it has a head start, is right on the plaza, but sort of south-facing on the raised planter. So the stand won't have to be so elaborate because it's just going to be in the soil, with plants around the base. But it's about the right height, with a little bit of boost. It's about the right height, and that'll be our starter sign, and that's why we're jumping on that one ahead of this one, because it's going to be more involved with the cost of making stands, et cetera. So, and we need to go through the public process, obviously, of consulting, making sure the stakeholders are happy, making sure you all are happy, and who else do we have to make happy? Anyway, so it's a process, and we're in process. So, thank you.
Other questions for Wendy?
Yep.
Thank you so very much for your good hard work, Wendy, and keep it up. We appreciate that report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move on to item number 6, which is a public hearing for the proposed rezone at 1330 Indian Hills Drive. Michael Ray, you will have the podium, sir.
Thank you again, Your Honor, council members. So before you tonight, we have a proposed rezone at 1330 Indian Hills Drive. The subject parcel is a little over an acre in size. It's 45,152 square feet. The applicant's requesting a rezone from the current general business zoning district to the residential office zone. This parcel was originally platted as part of Indian Hills 6 addition to the city of Moscow. So this is the parcel highlighted in red at the center of your screen. It's an older photo from about 2012, so you may realize the improvements to Indian Hills Drive and the rest of Indian Hills 6 have been completed. So Indian Hills Drive running east-west, and then you have a Pony Place. Those have all been completed as far as the infrastructure and sidewalks, curb gutter, and paving. You have Mountain View Road heading north-south here to the east, Alturas Drive with Alturas Technology Park there to the north. Directly to the east of the property is the USDA office building. You have various agricultural use field properties to the east and to the south. And then there's some townhouses that are currently under construction to the west and some multifamily development further to the west on that larger piece there. Looking at the current comprehensive plan land use designation, it's currently designated as auto urban commercial, as well as the USDA property to the east, and then more of the Thompson property to the east of Mountain View Road. To the west, with the multifamily development, we have urban residential designation through there. To the north is Research Technology Park, which represents Alturas. You've got Alturas Park here to the north, which is parks and open space. And then to the south, across Indian Hills Drive, is auto urban residential designation. So taking a look at what the auto urban commercial designation states in the comprehensive plan, It provides for commercial services and developments, usually catering to motor vehicle-oriented, those which require a large amount of land, should be located adjacent to existing commercial developments or along major arterials where you can accommodate the traffic. And then it points to the motor business zone as being the most appropriate zone. There is a portion of state law that requires zoning to be in accordance with the comprehensive plan. And the general rule of thumb is that any area may be zoned for a lower intensity than is indicated in the plan, but generally should not be zoned for a more intense use. So that's what you really have with this proposed zone change. So looking at the current zoning, general business, as well as USDA building to the east is general business. The lighter blue represents motor business zone to the east and to the southeast. RO, which is the proposed zone change. The property to the west is currently that designation. Alturas is research, technology, and office zone. And then to the south is farm ranch designation. So this would be the proposal, just changing from general business to residential office. You do have that contiguous area to the west that would be residential office as well. So in the zoning code, looking at what the code says about the residential office zone, it's intended to be moderately intensive, includes both office and high-density housing. And this is really our transitional zone, intended to be between commercial or industrial zoning districts and residential zoning districts. So serves as a transition. In this case, we have general business and motor business to the east of Mountain View, and then it serves as a transitional to the residential office to the west, and then the R3, R2, and R4 zones within Indian Hills 6 further to the west. It's appropriately applied in the following circumstances: on the perimeter of commercial or industrial districts where they abut residential land uses, where transportation network use is greater than desirable for lower density residential uses, and where landforms create sites that are reasonably accessible by transportation systems and which are buffered from nearby residential areas, as well as where the development patterns in a neighborhood will allow development of moderate intensity to occur without producing adverse visual impact or harm to the transportation network. Looking at the street network, we do have water sewer stubbed to the subject property. It's of adequate capacity. Indian Hills Drive is designated as a local street. Mountain View is designated as a minor arterial. Indian Hills Drive is currently paved, curb gutter, tree lawn, sidewalks on both sides of the street, as well as on-street parking on both sides of the street. And then Mountain View Road's an arterial. So taking a look at the rezone criteria in order to approve a rezone application, you need to meet 5 criteria, and the first one's just consistency with the comprehensive plan. The second is providing for a logical and orderly location of land uses and community services and facilities. The uses expected to occur as a result of the rezone will be compatible with the surrounding area. Size, type, and density of development expected to occur as a result of the rezone will not place an undue burden upon delivery of services provided by any political subdivision within the planning jurisdiction. And finally, size, type, density of development expected to occur as a result of the rezone can be adequately served by existing transportation network, public facilities, and services. Applicant did conduct a neighborhood meeting within everybody within 600 feet, and the site has been posted as a public hearing, and that happened on September 28, 2017. Those materials are included within your packet tonight. The Commission did conduct a public hearing, happened on November 8th of this year, and they recommended approval unanimously of the rezone request. So with that, staff's recommendation is that the council conduct a public hearing in consideration of testimony received, approve the proposed zoning ordinance under suspension of the rules, and that they adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria. And I'd certainly be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, for council, questions for Michael before we open the public hearing. Walter?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, can you go back to your current zoning map? There are currently some fairly recently constructed apartments along Indian Hills Drive. Are they in the brown area marked RO, and there's a vacant lot between the subject property and those apartments?
there's some townhouses, 2 rows, so they are multifamily. They're not divided on individually platted lots. So there's a.
But they are immediately adjacent to the property we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was
Yep.
my question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mike before we get going on the public hearing? Thank you, Michael. We will open the public hearing at 7:34, and I'd like to hear from the applicant, please.
All right. Garrett Thompson on behalf of Thompson Development, LLC, 1024 Pinecrest, here in Moscow, Idaho, 83843. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for your time this evening, and thank you, Mike, for your presentation on the rezone. This is a pretty straightforward request. The lot is currently zoned general business, and I respectfully request that you approve the rezone to residential office. The residential office zone gives us more market flexibility. It is not incompatible, or it is not an incompatible use with the property adjacent to the west, which is already zoned residential office. And the property to the east is used as office space for the USDA and is currently zoned motor business. I appreciate your time this evening and would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Garrett before we move on? Thank you, Garrett.
Awesome. Well then, thank you. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
With that, we will move on to other testimony. Those in favor or general testimony or opposed, please come up, state your name, address, and let us know what is on your mind in relationship to this. Seeing none, rush to the podium. It's going to go once, twice, 3 times. I close the public hearing at 7:36. I'll turn it over to council for discussion.
Art. Well, it makes good sense to me. It's a good extension of the residential office area already in existence. It doesn't harm any of the other adjacent uses. The Planning and Zoning Commission found in favor of it and generated appropriate reason statements and criteria, and I see no impediments to putting this through.
Okay.
I would agree with Mr. Betke, and I would move that we approve the proposed zoning ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary, and that we adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reasoned statement of relevant criteria.
I second it.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay. With that, we've got a motion by Jim and a second by Art to approve the proposed zoning ordinance under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary, and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria. I will start the roll with Brandy.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye.
Okay, and with that, we have an ordinance somewhere here. 2017-16. Okay, 2017-16, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the State of Idaho, providing for the zoning of approximately 49,068 square feet of property described in Section 1 of this ordinance as residential office, RO, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law. Thank you, and we will move on to the next item, which is another public hearing. Item number 7, amending the MCC Title 7 Chapters 1, 2, 3, 15, and 16, relating to the construction regulation, and Rod Hall has the podium. Rod, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight before you is a proposed ordinance amending our code concerning construction regulations. The state of Idaho has recently adopted the 2015 International Building Code, the 2015 International Existing Building Code, the 2015 Idaho State Plumbing Code, which is based off the 2015 Uniform Plumbing Code, the 2015 International Energy Conservation Code, and the 2017 National Energy Code with their amendments. The city is required, since the state has passed that, the city is required to adopt the building code into our code by incorporation. The cities can also be more restrictive on their regulations if they desire, if that's in the best interest of their community for the health and safety of their communities. The city has a building advisory committee that met last summer. They spent some time going through all these new codes, and they wanted to make some recommendations, some changes, amendments to the building code. What we're talking about is, this is our city code that you're all familiar, I'm sure you've read it all the way through. I guarantee I have. I'm not going to miss reading that.
We're going to take your word for it, Rod.
You can quiz me later. And then this is the International Building Code. And every one of those codes are all a big volume. And instead of putting these all into our code, we make references to it. So if you're looking through your ordinance tonight, there's the recommendations to amend sections of here. So if you want to really know the context, you'd want to make the reference and look at this to see exactly what they're amending. So the Building Advisory Committee met, they made their recommendations, and tonight has been a properly noticed public hearing, or notice for a public hearing. So tonight the staff would recommend that you approve the amendment to the ordinance to our code with the changes that the Building Code Advisory Committee recommended. And we talked about it at Administrative Committee. Our Building Code official, Justin Goodwin, did a great job, I thought, of explaining that, and he could explain it a heck of a lot better than I would ever be able to. He is our resident expert. But I have Mike Ray. If you want to talk technical questions about that, I would call on him.
Questions for Rod and or Michael before we move on to a public hearing from anybody on the council? Thank you, Rod. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:41. Those that would like to come up and tell us what's on your mind, whether you approve this or disapprove it, or what you're thinking in relationship to amending the MCC Title 7, Chapters 1, 2, 3, 15, and 16 relating to the construction regulations. Please come forward, state your name and address, and let us know what is on your mind with it. This is making it easy on me, so I will, going once, twice, and three times, we will close the public hearing, 7:42. And with that, I will turn it over to council for deliberation.
We did have this presented to the Administrative Committee, and I was looking back on my notes, and it was an excellent presentation because there was so much information to digest, and I appreciate what you did there by reminding us that everything's going to be linked from the code to those documents. And I didn't have, everything that we had asked had been answered there, and there was nothing that seemed unusual. But what I really appreciated was all the people that he named that was on that advisory group that has been around doing a lot of that. So that was really helpful.
All right.
And I'd extend those comments a little bit by saying also that the code that Moscow has in it now is probably 1/3 smaller than it used to be through the elimination of a lot of language and use of by reference to the international building codes, and it makes it a whole lot more usable for the person who's trying to actually apply these rules. So that the committee that worked on this did a spectacular job, I think.
Okay. Brandy?
I would also say it was my understanding in that meeting that some of the things that the city had adopted the last time around have now been adopted by the state. So I think that shows that's something to be proud of.
Your Honor, I have to say that I am proud of us for being trailblazers. I am also very proud of us for eliminating excess verbiage and making it, again, a user-friendly code that is approachable by our citizenry. And I would move that we approve the ordinance adopting the 2015 International Building Code, the 2015 International Existing Building Code, the 2015 Idaho State Plumbing Code based off the 2015 Uniform Plumbing Code, the 2015 International Energy Conservation Code, and the 2017 National Electrical Code, with amendments to the 2012 International Residential Code under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Gina and a second by Catherine to approve the ordinance adopting the 2015 International Building Code, the 2015 International Existing Building Code, the 2015 Idaho State Plumbing Code, based off of the 2015 Uniform Plumbing Code, the 2015 International Energy Conservation Code, and the 2017 National Electrical Code with the amendments to the 2012 International Residential Code, under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that be read and titled by published by summary. We all clear on that? We'll start the roll with Walter.
Aye.
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 Thank you, Michael and Rod. And with that, I've got another ordinance to read, and this is an easy one. This is 2017-17. Hey,
Yes,
Megan.
sir.
Ordinance 2017-17, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for the amendment of Moscow City Code Title 7, Chapters 1, 2, 3, 15, and 16, relating to construction regulations, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, and providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from the date of its passage, approval, and publication according to law. Okay, with that, I will move on to item number 8, which is the 1810 Nursery Street Lot Division. Ryan Cash is here to present. Ryan?
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. Before you tonight, we have a lot division for said property. Shelley Bennett is requesting a lot division on behalf of Indian Hills Trading Company from a 10.36 acre parcel of land legally addressed as 1810 Nursery Street, located between the corners of Powers Avenue and Southview Drive within the city of Moscow. For reference, we have Highway 95 Main Street. We have Police River Drive to the south. Nursery Street is our north-south. And then we also have the bisection of Southview Avenue to the northwest. So the applicant proposes to establish 2 parcels of approximately 3.26 acres and 7.10 acres from the existing 10.36 acre parcel. The subject property, again, is located within the farm, ranch, and outdoor recreation zone, where the minimum lot area is 3 acres and the minimum lot width is 80 feet. The 2 proposed parcels will meet all minimum lot area and lot width requirements for the FR zone. So here's the proposed divided lot. And as you can see, the mother parcel with both parcel 1, parcel 2, and included within that area is the dedicated parkland. Now, this was one of the subjects of discussion at the previous commission's meeting, and just for reference, this is a snapshot of the parcel as exists today. We're required to include that because it is part of that mother parcel. Again, and the topic of discussion is for the division of parcel 1 and parcel 1 strictly. So as you can see here, we have our local zoning on our GIS. Again, Southview and Nursery Street develops an R4 zone. All along our Highway 95 corridor is more business to the west. Our subject parcel is FR in green. Property to the south and to the east, again, is FR. And along Indian Hills Drive and Pinecone Road, we have R1. So as previously anticipated, that Powers Avenue would be extended to the northeast, connect to the future extension of Southview Avenue in order to develop a residential development. And since the current proposal does not include the extension of Powers Avenue, a cul-de-sac is required to be constructed at the terminus of Powers Avenue in order to meet city standards and International Fire Code. So again, we see Powers Avenue as this little stem here. And as you can see, this is existing lot as it stands today. And again, the anticipation previous to this land use request was for the extension of Powers Avenue. So this is a shot earlier this December of Powers Avenue standing on the corner of intersection of Powers and Nursery Street. And as you can see, there is no further development other than the fire hydrant and planter strip sidewalks, and other utilities. So in order to accommodate the cul-de-sac, the owner will need to dedicate an additional right-of-way through a deed dedication, which would be approved by the council at a future date. Just for reference, we can see the separated parcel, and from the previous Board of Adjustments meeting, the Plews Prairie School, just to show the scale of what a 96-foot cul-de-sac would look like at the end of Powers Avenue. Here's that same subject parcel as for the proposed division with the blow-up of our little detail that the applicant from the Board of Adjustment had proposed. So in accordance with City of Moscow requirements, the property owners within 600 feet of the property have been notified with the division, and the site was posted 7 days prior to the hearing. The hearing was conducted at the Public Works and Finance Commission on December 11th of this year. So for the recommendations that went before the committee members and for your ears tonight, Public Works and Finance Department recommendation, or correction, Public Works and Fire Department recommendations was that previously anticipated that Powers Avenue would be extended to the northeast to connect the future extension of Southview Avenue in order to accommodate the residential development. And since the current proposal does not include the extension of Powers Avenue, a cul-de-sac would be required to construct the terminus of Powers in order to meet the city standards and International Fire Code. So again, the public meeting was held on December 11th for the lot division. This was reviewed and recommended for approval by a Public Works and Finance Committee on December 18th, 2017. Staff's recommendation is to have the approval of the lot division request on the one condition that the owner dedicate property for and construct a 96-foot cul-de-sac to city standards at the current terminus of Powers Avenue prior to any building permits being issued upon the subject property. Any questions from council? I'd be glad to answer.
Ryan, as we get going here, even though this is not a public hearing, I'm going to ask folks if they want to speak about this. But before I do this, I wanted to say something to Jim. This was in front of Public Works and Finance on the 11th. And then I'm going to go to Walter next. But
yeah, we went through this in detail and what the use would be there of the proposed parcel one, and which seems in keeping with the neighborhood. And the only public comment that we received at that time was from Mr. Michael Bradley from Pullman, who owns, I think, lot number 4 in the Indian Hills, and was looking for a chance to have some sort of an easement to access that property. And I see the owners here, and I don't know if you're aware of his. I talked to him. Okay.
Okay. Shelley, we should get you up front here.
So we got to come up and tell us how you feel about that.
Shelley, just introduce yourself, Shelley, who you are. We all know you, but so the public.
Shelley Bennett, 2279 Mosier Court, and I represent Indian Hills Trading Company. And Plews Prairie School has talked to him about doing this project. We're anticipating coming back with a plat that will, 1, relocate the park, and 2, put lots that would go along it. Mr. Bradley's question was, can I gain an access off of Southview, because he has one of those drops off to nowhere lots up in Indian Hills. I can't see any reason why we couldn't work with them, especially when we're already working. There's already easements in place in that location. So, but we're anticipating that coming back with another plat that would relocate the park and put in residential lots around this. But that's not what we're talking about today.
That's right. Thank you, Shelley. Walter, you had a question.
I had a question for Ron.
Ryan? Okay. Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome. Mr. Steve.
Ron, your CCSR talks about 2 parcels, one being 3.26 acres and the other 7.10. But the map you've got up there right now calls parcel 2 as being 8.84 acres.
Correct. So the 8.84 is including the current parkland dedication. So we in
Why?
that. Go ahead, sir.
Why?
Why is it including in that? Because that's the overall parcel. That's what they're putting the proposed location in order to accommodate for all of the other easements and so forth as well.
Okay, so there's no problem with the fact that the CCSR names 2 parcels of specific sizes, but the map doesn't agree with it.
Maybe you can clarify that.
That's all I'm asking.
Michael's coming up here to answer that question.
He had just mislabeled on the map. So the applicant's
Good answer.
The applicant's engineer had included the parkland as part of that, but the actual legal descriptions don't have that
Should not have.
parkland included. Yeah, so we're all right with the legal descriptions.
Okay, thank you.
Art, could you expound a little bit more on fire access? Anytime you're dealing with a potential school off a cul-de-sac for emergency responses, is the cul-de-sac one entry into the area sufficient? And it must be in terms of the fire department.
So in order to accommodate a fire truck, International Fire Code requires them to provide a turnaround or a rolled curb for up to a 96-foot diameter cul-de-sac. And so that's part of this proposition, is to accommodate just as a minimum to accommodate for a turning radius of that size.
And then there will be further development when the building is actually constructed for appropriate access.
Correct.
To and around.
And so are you if talking about in reference to the school?
Yeah.
Correct. And that was part of the Board of Adjustments application. They did provide fire access on the east and west side of the
So they looked at it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Randy.
My question is very similar. So would it be the main, not the emergency fire, but just the regular access to the school? Is that anticipated to be off of Nursery Street?
The access would.
Through the, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. So the only access into the property, and this goes towards the Board of Adjustments for the conditional use permit for the school. However, you can see the proposed 96-foot cul-de-sac and then a larger diameter turnaround. The proposed applicant was using this as a fire turnaround for emergency vehicles, and then they also provided fire access up on the east and west side as fire lanes for access to emergency vehicles as well. Say, Mike.
May.
Mike, did you have a question?
Please. Yeah, so the International Fire Code only requires one point of access for emergency services. So Fire Marshal reviewed this, and this isn't really before you for the conditional use permit.
That's
it was
exactly
approved
right.
by the Board of
What we're
Adjustment.
talking about here is just the approval of the lot division. That's what we're
And the
talking about.
96-foot
That's exactly
cul-de-sac,
right.
which may, or my question centered on, is that going to limit the ability of the property to adhere to the fire codes?
That doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing.
But if we put in a
tonight.
cul-de-sac, we're approving that, and that may or may not impinge future use of that property. And I think we need to consider that now as part of what we're doing.
Well, what they do with the future of the property is not what's in front of us right now. Mike, you want to go ahead and continue?
Sure, yeah. Once you get beyond 150 feet, you're required to put some type of fire truck turnaround in. And so that's why they have the 96-foot cul-de-sac, is because that's in the International Fire Code as well as our city standards. There's 2 points of access. You have access on Nursery as well as Powers. International Fire Code does not require 2 points of access for a school property. And, if they do need future access, say the school doesn't choose to locate there, you have other development that happens on there, the fire marshal would review it at the time. And usually there's some type of fire truck access and turnaround. All of our fire truck access roads have to be at least 26 feet in width. And so that's why they have this large circular drive. And then just for your information, they do have a couple gravel access roads, so you can reach 150 feet around all sides of the building. And that's really the major requirement, is just getting the hose and the fire apparatus to the site and being able to reach all the way around it and fight all sides of the fire. So, the fire marshal is happy with this. It was originally anticipated that we have some type of road extension, like Ryan mentioned, to the northeast. With this development, it shouldn't prohibit any type of other residential development, like Ms. Bennett had referred to here to the north for the extension of Southview. So,
okay,
Your Honor, if I
Les?
may, just to clarify a little bit further, the cul-de-sac that's involved here is really not a fire department requirement. It's a public works requirement because it's a public street. So as Mike was just talking about, the original plat concept included an extension of Southview Avenue off of that T intersection up there at the top. And then it swings around kind of along the north side of the park parcel and intersects the north-south Alice right-of-way that was planned into the future. Powers was going to extend through this subject property and connect to Southview. So that was the original idea, was that there would be a through street in Powers. With the first phase of the plat, Powers Avenue was constructed to that point that you see there, with where the heavy line is on the east end of Powers. So that is an open existing public street. In order to end a public street, there needs to be a public turnaround involved. So with this development proposal, the concept of the through street that would have taken Powers up to a nice T intersection goes away, and so now we have a dead-end existing street. In order to then allow that to be, we need to have a public turnaround meeting the city standards for a cul-de-sac at the end of that public street. Now, what happens beyond that on the private property as it relates to fire access and turnarounds within the site and access to the buildings and all that, that all falls within the fire department requirements as it relates to the development of the individual parcels in the future. But for this requirement, this came from Public Works as it relates to how do you terminate a public street and a public turnaround.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Walter?
Probably for less regarding the cul-de-sac.
Yes, sir.
The cul-de-sac it's hard to tell from the drawings, is totally on parcel 1. It doesn't impinge on any of the properties to the south.
I believe there is a little bit to the south. Yeah, this drawing's a little bit better.
Not really.
Yeah.
That's what got me thinking.
Yeah, keep in mind that east-west sidewalk on the south side of Powers is roughly would be the south edge of the right-of-way. And so as you think about that cul-de-sac then dropping down a little bit on the screen, that is going to likely require some additional right-of-way there. We have the same owner at this point in all this property.
Lot 1, Block 3, which is the south lot, is owned by Thompson?
I believe that, not Thompson, by Powers, right? Powers. These are all Powers property, is my understanding. And so that would be part of the deal, that they have to work out how to obtain all that right-of-way so that can be constructed.
So, as part of tonight's proposed motion, we are to require the cul-de-sac, and then it becomes incumbent upon the Thompson
Powers, who currently own all of this property, is my understanding.
They own all of it, okay.
All of
I'm
this
sorry.
property.
So for them to agree to let part of Lot 1, Block 3 be used for the cul-de-sac.
Wherever that cul-de-sac needs to be,
Okay.
it can move around as long as there is one in some form.
Sorry, Garrett, trying to give you more land than you got.
Okay, well, with that, is there anybody out there that'd like to speak about this? Okay, well, we'll turn it back over to the council, so.
Mr. Mayor, it seems to me that while the cul-de-sac is, something would have to be done with the proposed use, if the whole thing fell apart and it changed hands, Powers Avenue could still go through. Mm-hmm. That could still be a possibility. And so that's really irrelevant to the decision of the lot division. We can have the lot division, and then whatever happens afterwards requires that decision, but it's not relevant to whether we divide the lot or not.
Mike?
And that's why it's tied to the building permit. So if they never come and pull a building permit, then we don't get a cul-de-sac. Maybe we get another residential development that happens there, and they don't do a cul-de-sac. They end up extending Powers through. So, yeah, that's why we tied it to the issuance of a building permit for the subject property.
Your Honor, again, that's as it relates to the construction, but making it part of the condition of the property action at this point ensures that public street, if it is not extended,
is a cul-de-sac.
Becomes a cul-de-sac with the appropriate cul-de-sac standards met, assuming the property develops in some fashion as a single lot.
Walt,
I think that just answered my question I didn't ask.
Okay. It's just basically a condition on
It is a proper condition from the city's standpoint.
Other questions, huh? Art?
Well, I'd make a motion to approve the lot division request with the condition that the owner dedicate property 4 and construct a 96-foot diameter cul-de-sac to city standards at the current terminus of Powers Avenue prior to any building permits being issued upon the subject property.
Second.
Gina, was that, who said, was that you, Gina?
Yeah, somebody
She got
else
you,
got it.
she got you right before Jim. Okay, we got a motion by Art and a second by Gina to approve the lot division request with the condition that the owner dedicate property for and construct a 96-foot diameter cul-de-sac to city standards at the current terminus of Powers Avenue prior to any building permit being issued upon the subject property. Let's start to roll with Brandy.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Good discussion on that. Well, that kind of comes to the end of the meeting, but we'll go with reports now. So, Jim.
Okay, after the last meeting, Tuesday following the last council meeting, I went to the Farmers Market Commission meeting, which was held downtown at the Chamber of Commerce due to this room being busy. And the main topic in that meeting was the rewriting of the Farmers Market Policy Manual to make it more readable for the vendors. And I think Daniel and the commission are doing a great job. Was a very complex document and very confusing to vendors, and I think they're doing a great job of simplifying it and making it more readable and understandable to all the vendors. So kudos to them for working so hard on that. Last Tuesday I went to the Arts Commission, last meeting of the year, and most of the discussion there centered around public art, with the library, Melissa Cole doing the tile mural for the library. That's underway. And also there was talk about public art on the island on C Street down by Dutch Brothers Coffee, where there'd be some sort of public art facility put there. But the Idaho Transportation Department is heavily involved in that because of the line of sight for those things. So that's in the works, but there's a lot of other input from IDT to make that happen, or ITD. And then last Thursday I went to the Palouse Knowledge Corridor. There wasn't enough people there for a quorum, but it looks like they're financially fit. They're not bankrupt or anything. There was quite a discussion, even though there wasn't a quorum, about the roadblocks to transfer of technology from the universities to private enterprise, and what the people at the universities are faced with in terms of if they generate ideas or proprietary technologies that they want to license them themselves, and it makes it difficult for someone like the Palouse Knowledge Corridor to get involved with that. They have to be kind of a secondary player in that, and so it makes it kind of difficult to bring things out. And I assume Gina could talk to that, because I'm sure PEP is faced with the same thing in terms of trying to get technologies to locate here when they're licensed to someone that is in another state. So there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there, where the people that own the technology want to get the maximum value for it, and the university certainly has to bring back as much revenue as they can for these proprietary technologies, but at the same time we're trying to get them to locate here. So it's a kind of a difficult situation.
Okay. All
right. Two items. The Clearwater Resource Conservation and Development Council met on December 7th, and they're busy working on a series of fire response guides for various rural locations, putting those together. And in addition to that, they're trying to collect all the money that's owed to them by the federal government over the last year that has been held up by various budget extensions that have gone on and made it difficult for Forest Service to actually pay their bills. And they've also changed their schedule from meeting every month to meeting every other month, which makes good sense. Also, the Urban Renewal Agency met on December 14th and are launching into a floodplain study from about Main Street headed east, because currently on floodplain maps a fair bit of Urban Renewal Agency area is in a floodplain. And so with the remapping of this floodplain that removes some of the bridges that actually no longer exist there, suddenly the floodplain could go away and make it a whole lot easier to redevelop those areas. So that's being launched into with great zest and zeal by the board. And also looking into expanding Legacy Crossing to the east side of Main Street, and that's an ongoing discussion to see if that will work out to enable the URA to participate in some revitalization of infrastructure downtown, like the aggregate sidewalks that are not in great shape right now, and also replacing some of the trees and tree wells. So the URA is proceeding on those two fronts as well.
Okay. Walter.
On December the 13th, I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. There were two items of interest, I think, in there. One was the comprehensive plan update regarding future land use map and designations. They have not totally worked through that yet, but they're starting to get into it. The second thing was the proposed recommended updates to the comprehensive plan that came from the Sustainable Environment Commission. It consisted of 4 typewritten pages of proposed additions to the comprehensive plan, primarily taken from the American Planning Association documents by Mark Solomon, it appears. Also from the Citizens Climate Lobby, from various websites, and recollection of Moscow citizen surveys. I'm just reading from what they gave them. Comment by the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission was that the format of the proposed changes didn't quite fit the way the comprehensive plan of the City of Moscow is formatted. So Mike Ray was asked to take a look at it and see if there's some way to make it more compatible with our existing document. So that will be coming forward sometime in the future. It will be interesting to see if all 4 pages are incorporated pretty much as proposed.
Thank you, Walter. Catherine.
I attended the fire department board meeting and general meeting on December 11th, and they give their statistics. They went through their budget. They are working on their strategic planning and remodeling Station 1. That was the big focus, and they are working on outreach, and they are kind of putting the word out for EMT classes. So if anybody's interested in EMT classes and the Fire Academy classes, to go to their Facebook page. And the other thing they can do, if you're interested, from December 18th to 20th, the fire department, the rural fire at the Rural Fire Station, Christmas for Kids. They're doing a lot of wrapping and gift preparation, and they need help as far as folding them up and then distribution. And then transportation met, and we had a presentation by Les for an hour and a half to take all the time to put together everything that had happened in the 8 meetings for the subcommittee, and he went through everything and helped everybody understand that the corridor plans dealt with safety, multimodal access, and limiting the impact on everything. And I wanted to just name the people that were on the subcommittee because those citizens and staff people did an excellent job. And so there was Becker Gooch, Amy Ball, Marshall Comstock, Dan Carscallon. Mike Lowry served as our technical advisor. I was the city council liaison. There was Philip Cook, Brian Johnson, and Ben Calabretta from the Transportation Commission. And it was hard times, and it was good times, and it showed how well the process works. So that will keep coming forward.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Gina.
Last week I attended my last Pathways Commission meeting of the year. I'm going to miss them, believe it or not. They're a crazy bunch of bicyclists and pedestrians. The bulk of what we did, again, was identifying orphan paths. What a fun, it's kind of like a treasure hunt throughout our community. So it's been kind of fun to look at our community from that perspective. They also, in positive anticipation of reappointments, elected officers that evening. I will tomorrow evening go to the Sustainable Environment Commission, and I would invite Councilmember Steed to visit with the author of that 4-page document and find that there are very, very much more thought and very many more sources than what you cited.
That's just what they had in their document. I didn't make them up.
Well, I can guarantee that there was more information there than you presented, sir.
Brandy.
I don't have any reports, but I do want to say that I appreciate everyone's patience and understanding and support as I work out the wording and kind of learning all of this, and just assure everyone that I'm a quick learner.
I have a couple of things. December 5th, we had a meeting at Town and Ganseray at our Smart Transit Center, and that was a fun night with University of Idaho leadership, student leadership, city leadership, and as well as council. So that's always a fun night when we get together and talk and see what's going on with the young men and women at the University of Idaho. Is really very, very nice. December 11th, I had an airport board meeting, and we just went over the usual things that we always go over. Nothing really new there other than things are kind of weaning down for the winter months as far as construction and those sort of things because of the weather pattern. And then on December 15th here in this very building, we had Russell Carolers in here singing. It was great. We got them inside, and those kids, we had 200 third graders, around 200 third graders, blasting away. It was great. It's absolutely awesome. I love that sort of thing. So we had a good time, and it was fun. And with that, that's all I have. Jenny, have you got anything for us?
Just a quick note, a reminder that our committee meetings for next Tuesday, because of the Christmas holiday, they are canceled, and so our next meeting will actually be council on January 2nd, which is also a Tuesday due to the New Year's holiday on Monday.
And I just had a question. I had a question about the citizen surveys, about how many went out, when did they go out, and when does all that come back in?
We did the commission surveys that were sent the beginning of December, and they're already coming in. We sent out about 1,200. We sent out 1,200 exactly. We have gotten anywhere from 350 to 425 back in the past, which has always been a really great return. We really do appreciate people filling those out and sending them in. And then we anticipate getting a report to the council hopefully in February.
And this was the commission survey, not the
The
citizen
commission
surveys,
survey.
Ms.
We'll be
Butler.
doing and they're just a little bit different in the way the questions, or the types of questions that are asked. So this will be based on commission activities that you'll see in February. In the next fall of 2018, we'll do the citizen survey. And so we'll have an annual update on citizen opinions coming back to you.
Great, thank you.
Pass.
If I could, Your Honor, just one quick follow-up to Catherine's comments on the subcommittee. We are launching the public input process this week. I'm not sure yet if it's going to be Wednesday or Thursday, but sometime yet this week. We will get that started at the request of the Transportation Commission. It will run through the latter part of January, so roughly a month or so. The intent is to have a lot of the information pertaining to the work of the subcommittee and the Transportation Commission and all the options that were addressed and all the things we talked about on the city website. And then we will also be putting up an exhibit out here in the hallway as part of the 3rd Street Gallery that will be in place for the month. We anticipate 2 open houses occurring in January. The first of those probably the 11th, which is the day after school starts at U of I, so everybody should be back in town. The second one about a week later, probably on the 18th. The first one likely will be here in the council chambers. The second one we may move to another venue just to spread it around a little bit. So folks will be able to provide comments on comment cards in the open houses out here in the hallway, and also electronically online through our email and other features. So I just want to let folks know that that's going to be starting up shortly, and we'll be running again about a month into the latter part of January.
Okay, very good.
Les, I have a quick question for you on the, all the various A, B, and C alternatives for bike transportation on 3rd Street and the innovations going on there. I haven't seen one that has an elevation profile from Mountain View to Washington. Mm-hmm. Is that something you're going to consider, like showing it from the side? And because to me, that's a big portion of how we put that together is which way is it uphill?
Right, right.
Yeah, because it's uphill going east to Hayes, and it's downhill to Mountain View, and then it's uphill going the other way to Hayes, and then downhill. So it makes a difference in terms of a cyclist's ability to keep pace with traffic, and
certainly
it's a safety issue. So
we have not developed a profile of the corridor, but I think we could, and that's a good suggestion. We'll take a look at whether or not we can incorporate that into the packets. In the package.
On Sunday, I rode that in the snow both ways twice just to see what that was like and to introduce an extra measure of fear because Catherine thinks that I'm not. My assessment of cycling things is not relative to other people, so.
How many-
So I made it
other
way
cyclists were
difficult.
out there with you?
There was no one else.
Right.
No one else was riding. But it was great because you could see where the car tracks are and where the bike track is, and you could see because there was no one else on the road, so you could easily see your tracks relative to the parked cars in.
You know, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd entertain an adjournment motion from somebody.
Let's be entertained and adjourned.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:19. Thank you, everybody. Happy Hanukkah, happy holidays, Merry Christmas.